We have today two panels of witnesses. I would like now to welcome our witnesses for the first panel. Ontario Provincial Police, Scott Wade, Detective Inspector. Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Matt Peggs, Assistant Commissioner and Commanding Officer of Federal Policing, Central Region, Division O. Martin Roach, Assistant Commissioner and Commanding Officer of Federal Policing, Eastern Region, C Division. Canada Border Service Agency, Aaron McCrory, Vice President, Intelligence and Enforcement. Up to 5 minutes will be given for opening remarks, after which we will proceed with rounds of questions. Welcome to all of you. I now invite Mr. Wade to make an opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bonjour. My name is Scott Wade. I'm a Detective Inspector with the Ontario Provincial Police. I'm assigned to the Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, where I coordinate the provincial auto theft strategy, which includes the provincial auto theft and towing team. The vehicles that we drive in Ontario have become a sought-after commodity. We have seen a dramatic increase in the value of used vehicles in this post-COVID-19 economy. Organized crime networks have taken the opportunity to exploit the global supply and demand for vehicles and vehicle parts, using profits from these thefts to finance other criminal activities such as drug trafficking, firearms trafficking, human smuggling and trafficking, and international terrorism. Organized crime groups travel interprovincially to major metropolitan regions using spotters to identify vehicles, thieves to steal them, and runners to transport the vehicles to points of export. Many offenders have previous convictions for serious offences and use violent carjacking and home invasions to acquire the targeted vehicles. We know that these vehicles are often placed in sea containers and find their way to the Port of Montreal for furtherance to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Once on our Ontario roadways, these vehicles are recklessly driven, threatening public and officer safety. When arrests are effected, the accused is often in possession of drugs, weapons, including firearms, and technological devices such as reprogrammed key fobs, used to facilitate the theft of vehicles. The problem is very complicated and far from a victimless property crime. In the OPP, we continue to work with our municipal, provincial, and federal policing partners to ensure that these offenders do not go undetected. This includes intelligence sharing and active enforcement measures. The Ministry of the Attorney General has dedicated Crown attorneys and support staff for the major auto theft prosecution response team, and we continue to work closely with them to ensure investigative excellence. Collectively and collaboratively, we are responding to the national crisis of public and officer safety by disrupting the transnational criminal market being controlled by organized criminal networks. By working in tandem with the insurance industry, auto manufacturers, and all levels of government to develop long-term solutions aimed at drastically reducing the number of vehicles being stolen, we are seeing incredible results. As an example, the OPP has been working with Canada Border Services Agency, our Ontario policing partners, the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario, Service de Police de la Ville de Montréal, and the Sûreté de Québec at the Port of Montreal as part of Project Vector, recovering over 600 stolen vehicles prior to illegal exportation. We have successfully worked with the SPVM, Montreal Police, to arrest 34 accused in the City of Montreal as part of Project Volcano. These accused were all wanted on outstanding arrest warrants from Eastern Ontario. Additionally, the OPP continues to facilitate Project Emissions. This intelligence probe was created as an intelligence strategy to counter the auto theft crisis by collecting and sharing information with our policing partners, provincially, nationally, and internationally. We prioritize the need for safety within our communities and for our officers. We must recognize that the level of violence associated with these organized crime-directed vehicle thefts. We stand with our policing partners in calling to continue strengthening our port security and monitoring mechanisms to disrupt the illegal exportation of stolen vehicles, and focus on our intelligence strategies and enforcement strategies, continuing to work collaboratively with this information, and seek stronger minimum sentences for repeat offenders, the creation of offences related to possession for the purpose of trafficking and/or exporting a stolen motor vehicle, and consideration to be given to the availability of the maximum criminal code penalties currently available. Thank you, merci, and miigwech.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. I now invite Mr. Peggs and Mr. Roach to make opening statements, please. Mr. Peggs. Sure.
Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais vous
Chair, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak before the committee today to share some of the important work underway to combat auto theft. During the National Summit on Auto Theft, it was clear that many Canadians are feeling the impact of this serious crime. There is a concerning volume of vehicle theft in Canada, including an increased occurrence of violent thefts. Auto theft is directly affecting the safety of our communities.
The Summit also made clear that solutions require strong partnerships. Combating vehicle theft requires cooperation among law enforcement organizations, governments, industry, and international partners. While the investigation of each auto theft incident falls under the police jurisdiction, the RCMP federally supports the important work being done at the provincial and municipal levels to make progress on this issue. For example, in Quebec, the RCMP is participating in Project Recherché, led by the Sûreté de Québec. This project targets criminal groups responsible for the export of stolen vehicles. The RCMP is also involved in Project Vector, led by the Ontario Provincial Police, which aims to disrupt organized crime's activities on stolen vehicles at all stages of the outbound criminal supply chain. Ces efforts conjoints portent leurs fruits.
These joint efforts are producing results. On April 3rd, the Ontario Provincial Police announced that Project Vector led to the recovery of 598 vehicles from the Port of Montreal. Auto theft is also an issue that goes beyond Canada's borders. The RCMP has a network of liaison officers and analysts deployed around the world to work with our international partners, including on the seizure of stolen vehicles originating from Canada. I am particularly pleased to inform the committee that, in February, the RCMP integrated the Canadian Police Information Centre's stolen vehicle information with Interpol's stolen motor vehicle database. The Canadian database contains details on more than 140,000 vehicles stolen in Canada. This information is now accessible to the international law enforcement community, who can query vehicles matching Canadian records in the Interpol database. In the first 6 weeks of the integration with Interpol's database, there were over 1,000 notifications related to Canadian records, and the RCMP has received over 150 new direct requests for international collaboration.
Intelligence resources continue to collect and analyze intelligence to inform our direction. Nationally, the RCMP hosts the Central Bureau for the Criminal Intelligence Service of Canada, which delivers criminal intelligence products and services to the entire Canadian law enforcement community and other key stakeholders responsible for public safety. In closing, I'd reiterate that the RCMP is fully engaged with partners to combat auto theft and to ensure that the criminals are held to account. We look forward to answering the questions that the committee members may have today.
Mr. Peggs. Mr. McCrory, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honourable members of the committee. Thank you for having us here today to respond to your questions. The Canada Border Services Agency has a dual mandate: to facilitate legitimate trade in support of a strong Canadian economy and to ensure border security and integrity to protect Canadians from a variety of threats, including illegal drugs, firearms, and the export of stolen vehicles. This dual mandate is reflected in our results. In 2023, we facilitated the arrival of over 85 million travelers, and in the marine mode alone, we facilitated the movement of over 3.5 million containers through Canadian ports. At the same time, we were protecting our communities by preventing over 900 prohibited firearms and over 27,000 weapons from entering our country. We intercepted over 72,000 kilograms of prohibited drugs, cannabis, narcotics, and precursor chemicals. And we prevented 1,806 stolen cars from being exported. Reflecting the priority we are putting on auto theft, so far in 2024, we have intercepted 949 stolen vehicles. Auto theft in Canada is clearly a threat that we will continue to address in close collaboration with our partners. As we heard from all the participants at the National Summit on Combating Auto Theft earlier this year, this is a complex problem with no single silver bullet or solution. This means two things. First, everyone has a role to play: manufacturers, insurance companies, law enforcement, shippers, and at the end of the line, the CBSA. Second, from a CBSA point of view, supported by the $28 million in funding announced by the Minister of Public Safety prior to the summit, the CBSA is deploying an array of tools and approaches to combat auto theft, including using intelligence and data. We risk assess shipments to find the needles in the haystack. About 2,300 containers come and go from the Port of Montreal each day. The vast majority are legitimate shipments that are key to Canadian prosperity. We are working to identify, assess, and deploy technology that can help with searches. Every day, we're deploying our highly trained and experienced border services officers who leverage intelligence and technology to search containers and seize stolen vehicles in ports and rail yards. From these seizures, we're sharing information and intelligence with police so they can pursue criminal investigations and lay charges. And we are reviewing our legislation and regulations to see if we need changes to gather more data and share more information. This has to be and is a collaborative effort. The CBSA continues to work very closely with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Ontario Provincial Police, the Sûreté du Québec, the Service de Police de la Ville de Montréal, and other police of jurisdiction to strengthen information sharing and support their criminal investigations. Last year, we participated in 14 different police operations, and we are continuing to do so this year. For example, we've talked already about Project Vector, a joint operation between the CBSA, the OPP, Sûreté du Québec, SPVM, and Equité, resulted in targeting 390 shipping containers and the recovery of 598 stolen vehicles. We are also working with industry groups like Equité Association and the Canadian Vehicle Exporters Association to further improve our targeting efforts. As I noted earlier, auto theft is a complex problem that requires all players: manufacturers, insurance companies, shippers, law enforcement, and the CBSA to play a role. Collectively, we need to make it harder to steal cars. We need to make it harder to move stolen cars to a port. We need to target the criminals stealing cars, and we need to recover stolen vehicles in ports and rail yards. That's why auto theft is a priority for the CBSA, and we are committed to continuing to play our role. Thank you. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. McCrory.